Hey, darling, I'm so excited for this episode. This is going to be like the introductory episode of the podcast or the new iteration of my podcast because this will be like the third kind of twist um, on it. And yeah, I'm excited to bring you this episode. I'm not totally prepared for it because I just decided that I was going to come upstairs and record this episode and practice what I preach, which is using momentum instead of motivation and just getting started and seeing how I feel once I start. I've recorded a podcast episode on that. That's going to be in the next podcast episode. So check that one out after this one when that one's released because that's really important. It's a really good tool to use momentum instead of motivation because motivation is not so easy to rely on. It's not so consistent. But once you get started with things, get the ball rolling, as they say, you build up momentum and it becomes easier and easier. So especially if you are neurodiverse, if you're ADHD, if you just have any resistance and blockages, I highly recommend using that tool. So for the last 15 years, I've been studying mindset, psychology, behavior, entrepreneurship, and spirituality and manifestation, and just a wide kind of personal development packaged in a little ball. But I didn't know it at the very start. I just kind of got started. I wanted to have more positive thinking. It actually all started with an epiphany when I was upset after a day at school. I was sitting and wallowing in my misery. I was really not feeling good. And then this moment of absolute clarity, like the literal definition of epiphany, washed over me. And I suddenly realized it's like all those thoughts just stopped abruptly. All the emotions just stopped abruptly. And I suddenly realized that I had a choice. It was like the off switch went on. I had a choice and I went to my mirror and I looked at myself upset and I laughed and I thought, hang on, I was choosing to have all those negative thoughts, so I can choose to stop them and I could choose a different thought instead. And that's how it all started when I was 14 years old. Then I started training my brain without knowing it. I was using cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which is a psychological, like a really common psychology tool, strategy, method, I guess they call it. Um, and I was also into entrepreneurship from a really young age, like age 10. And when I was 17, I started my own business. And throughout those high school and college years, I was coaching other people and I knew I wanted to be a life coach, but life coach just seemed so flat. It wasn't quite what I wanted. And I also wanted to have more life experience as well. So I went through this journey of learning more about myself, my psychology. I learned that I am Asperger's, if you want to use that term, or on the autism spectrum. And I I learned to overcome that because I was into personal development. I was open to constructive criticism and just really being self-aware and making choices about how I can improve, how I can change, and really being attuned to my own energy, to how the environment was affecting me and how I can choose what environments I'm in. I can use strategies when I'm in them. Same as with my house, like really setting things up so they support me. And then learning to use emotional regulation and then also creating the life that suits me and that I really want to live as well. So business, life, and personal inside world, like my thoughts, my emotions. And I had kids, so I had to learn how to manage other people's emotions. And my kids are both, I think, pretty sure they're both ADHD. So that's been a handful and a learning curve as well. And I'm also ADHD as well. And learning that I was ADHD really opened my mind because I already knew I was neurodiverse and I didn't know much about ADHD until I was learning about it for my kids. And I realized that so many of the struggles that I'd been having over the last was really related to business because I kind of had a really good mastery over my life with my general emotional regulation, autism type stuff, sensory type stuff, all what I feel like are the basics, like the foundation. I have a really great foundation, but the one thing that I was really struggling with is consistency and motivation in business, and also having so many ideas at once. And there are just so many ways that ADHD kind of impacts business, and because business is such a big, broad, nuanced thing, especially online business. And there are just all these little ways that ADHD means that we have to do things a little bit differently, and that the general advice out there doesn't work so well for us. So I had to learn how to make that work for myself. And learning that I have ADHD really explained why I have these cycles, why I have huge bursts of energy that aren't sustained, and then I might not be able to get myself started. And knowing that and having that understanding helped me to put into place other strategies. So this podcast episode, I'm kind of rambling on, but it's in a particular direction. This episode is about creating that foundation and realizing, like, my perspective of ADHD is that it's an energetic thing. Because over those 15 years that I was learning what I thought was all these different aspects of my life, they all came together, and I realized that, hey, this is all energy, firstly, and this is all ADHD. I felt like I was learning about psychology, and that was the brain, and that was one thing. And then I was learning about emotions, which is kind of tied in with the brain, but also tied in with the body. And I was learning about my health and creating routines and finding ways that I could make my habits sustainable and make them work. Then I had parenting, which was another facet. And then I had thinking about the environment, how that impacted me. And then I had my business, my creative side, my output of energy. And I've realized that all of those things are energy. You have your energy of your thoughts. It's literally energy going between neurons in your brain and where they are directed. And I love neuroscience. It's so interesting because your thoughts will take the more fully formed path, because it's easier for energy to take that path. When you're building a new habit or a new, like, habitual thought, a new neurological pathway, say if you've had negative thoughts and you want to change them to positive thoughts, the new thought pathway will actually be thinner. And that's why it feels hard. Like, it physically feels hard, and it's really tiring to change our habits, because we're forcing energy through these smaller neurons, and it takes effort. We are retraining that. So that's energy. Our emotions are the energy of our mind and our body kind of swirling together. I love learning about emotions as well, and brain chemicals and how they impact emotions and the body and how we're feeling. And then we have our body. And our body, we have physical energy. And I've gone through childbirth, I've gone through chronic fatigue, I've healed anxiety, which is kind of a brain, emotions and body thing as well, and learned how to look after my energy and to find a way to consistently move my body and look after my body when my ADHD brain might get bored of doing the same thing all the time. So it's in little ways like that that we have to do things differently for ADHD, and it can kind of take a while to learn ourselves and learn what we need and how we need to do it, because what works for the average person doesn't necessarily work for us. So that's where it can really help to have a mentor, someone to teach you and guide you. And it's where I really have felt passionate about creating a program with all my knowledge in it. Whereas I started with my first online program was Mama Coaches, which was showing other mums how you can easily and very simply start up a coaching business, sharing your knowledge. And then my second one that I really wanted to focus on was manifestation. And manifestation is another type of energy. It's you outputting energy, but it didn't feel like everything. So in my program, I want to be teaching about all these aspects. I've learned 15 years. I have been actively studying this stuff and implementing it in my own life and experimenting in my own life, finding out what works and what doesn't, finding out how things work differently for the ADHD brain and ADHD energy. And just have so many strategies and tools and little tweaks and shifts that we can use without it being such hard work. Because the other thing is that having complicated things that we need to go through, complicated actions, having strategies that we actually need to use a lot of conscious thought to implement and turn into habit. That's hard for the ADHD brain, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. So I really believe in giving knowledge and insights that help you naturally shift how you do things and change your results, because you just simply have that awareness, and that awareness changes things. And then I believe in stopping the things that aren't helping you. If you can find out what they are and realize, then you'll stop doing them, and then you'll have better results as well. Then I believe in simple shifts, simple actions, like maybe change how you're doing something. Maybe do a really small action, like 5 minutes in the morning, but don't change everything at once. Don't have 5 minutes in the morning and then change how you're doing this, change how you're doing that, and then try and monitor your thoughts all day. Things like that do not work for us. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, it's beneficial, it's great, but it requires you to always be switched on, always be aware of your thoughts. And I much rather sit down with you and you watch a video, maybe you implement one tiny thing, and that just has massive results through that really simple thing. And it's also why I'm such a fan of EFT tapping, because you sit down for 10-20 minutes, you run through this tapping script, and that helps you rewire the thing. So then you go about for the rest of your day, and it's kind of been input into your body. It's been embodied already without you having to spend your entire day thinking about that thing actively and trying to actively change it. So that is my opinion. That's just what I believe in. It's how I believe. It's how I believe in doing it. I don't know how I'm saying that sentence. Hold on a sec. That's really what I believe that ADHDers need, is keeping things really simple. We don't need more things on our plate. We're already like managing our entire life, and it takes more brain power for us to manage things. And I also believe in using hacks to make your life easier as well. So anyway, so far we have your thoughts energy, your emotional energy, your body's energy. Then you have the energy of the environment. We can be very sensitive to sensory stuff. We can be sensitive to crowds and things like that. So I really believe in planning your life and like choosing how your life is so it works for you. And I understand not everyone can have choice in like their career and what they work and that kind of thing. Everyone has choice, but I understand that people are in different situations at the current moment, because I really believe in creating your dream life. But you can work with things how you are. You can work with your life how it is, and you can tweak and change little things, or you can try and design your life. And I'm so lucky that I have a life where I can choose what I do all day, every day. I homeschool my kids. I can take advantage of the weather. I can go out in nature a lot. Hold on a second. And then the other energy that there is manifestation, and using spiritual energy to help us create the life we want, but also on a more practical level as well. If you're a more practical person, you're aligning your conscious thoughts and your subconscious thoughts with your actions and creating the kind of life that you want to live. So that's energy output. All of these different facets of life, and motherhood and business as well, are about energy. Business, it's so influenced by our mindset and attitude towards us. It takes a lot of energy to do. We can use our energy wisely by using the right strategies and not overcomplicating things, and doing business the ADHD way, which not a lot of people teach. So I'm really passionate about teaching that as well, because there are some things that I've learned along the way that we actually need to do differently. And a lot of the rules and common beliefs don't apply to us. And there's actually a lot of sneaky limiting beliefs that are held by the entire industry as well. So it's time to shake things up, do things a different way, and make things work for us. Also, motherhood. Motherhood obviously takes a lot of energy. There's like energy between your emotions and the kids' emotions. You really need to learn to guard your energy, have boundaries, look after your energy, rest well, because it can be really tiring. And kids are a really interesting lesson in energy as well, because they just have so much energy, especially ADHD kids. So this is really how I see things. And like I say, all these things that I was learning for 15 years and thinking, well, should I teach that? Should I teach that? Should I teach that? All came together. And I really believe that when you have this understanding of just so many things that I've learned over these years, because that's what I was saying before when I said that I implement these things and experiment with them every day. I've also done obviously numerous programs, but also read hundreds of books, listens to like hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of podcast episodes, and just researched and studied my butt off about these things. And I've just learned so many amazing little strategies and insights. And my favorite thing is the insights, because it's like you get this new bit of knowledge and it just expands your mind that little bit. It opens you up. It's like widens your eyes, like, oh wow, I never saw it that way. I could do this differently. I could implement this little thing. I could change a little thing that I'm doing. And through all this time that I've been doing that, I've really been refining and designing how my life is and learning how I operate and creating this foundation of energy. Whereas, like, if you can imagine a foundation, there have been times when this foundation has been really rocky, when I was having negative thoughts, or when I had like full-on anxiety attacks and stuff, when my emotions, my emotions still go up and down. And I'm so glad to be learning more about ADHD and how things affect ADHD emotions, not just neurotypical emotions or autism spectrum emotions, because with ADHD, it's very impacted by hormones as well. I'm more sensitive to hormones, and that just opened my mind up. And now I understand a lot of things. I understand why I feel a certain way at different times of the month. I understand why I understand why I get sad after several days of no sun. And I was thinking it can't be seasonal affective disorder, because that's about vitamin D, but it's about how the ADHD brain reacts to serotonin. So fascinating, so interesting, and very helpful, because then I got myself a what's it called? A sun. It's the Happy Lamp that I bought, and it's a light that mimics the sunlight. And just by getting that little hack, now I can help myself not feel that way. So I've had those dips in those mental thoughts, in the emotions, and in the body when I experience chronic fatigue as well, and when I've had kids and when I've had injuries with my body. And just staying consistent in exercise has been difficult, but I have found the way now for my ADHD brain. The environment as well. I've lived in environments and obviously been to environments where I've found, hang on, this kind of thing isn't for me. So I've learned to be in the places that work well for me, or at least give myself strategies or breaks from environments that don't work so well for me. And then there's manifestation, and I love manifestation. And I also think that manifestation works differently for ADHD people. I think a lot of the strategies that are taught out there maybe don't necessarily work for us, because we might get bored of it. It might not be interesting enough. We might need to shake it up and get some novelty in there. And yeah, anyway. So this perspective of mine is really how I've managed my ADHD and got to a place where I feel like I'm in control of my life and living this life as I really want to live it. And I know now I've created that foundation, so I don't have a lot of these struggles. And if anything comes up, I know the strategy for it. I know straight away how to react to it. Most of the struggles that I used to be having or have had at different points in my life, they don't happen anymore, because of just the way I live, the way I see things. And as I say, if the ones that do happen, now I know, oh, I'll just use that little strategy. I'll just shift how I'm doing it. I'll just go and do this thing that helps me overcome it, or whatever it may be. And that's just a wonderful place to be in. So I haven't named this podcast yet because I haven't uploaded it, but I'm thinking something like aspiring ADHDers, because I really, it's interesting because there are so many ADHDers out there, and everyone who's teaching on it is slightly different. And what I teach is kind of, it's a niche within the ADHD market, if we want to call it that. God. And it's not just like when I wanted to teach manifestation, I thought, but I want to teach people like me. And same with business, like people like me, people who struggle a bit with their energy. So I feel like where I've come from and where you're probably at the moment is the aspiring ADHDer. You aspire to have your life together and be able to make consistent progress towards your goals. And this is where I was trying to say before, and sometimes my podcast will go in circles. So I hope you can kind of keep up. I know you guys are super smart and you have the kind of brains that can do that and can piece things together. So maybe it's totally fine. Enough tangent. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Um, yeah, where ADHD has impacted me the most is like being consistent and getting the things I wanted to get done in my business. So for a long time, I felt like I was aspiring for that, but I had this struggle that no one else seemed to have except someone that I know is a really close friend who now thinks that they might have ADHD too. So that makes total sense for both of us. Now we understand what's going on. Um, so yeah, the aspiring ADHD, you aspire to do this thing with your life, but you might be stopping and starting. You might be making progress, but then you find that one of those things in the foundation drops and it takes your attention. You might find that sometimes you hyper focus on this project and you get a lot done and then you just completely use your energy of it. Or you might find that you're really scattered and you have a million different ideas and you flip between them, or you can't choose, or you're too busy with different hobbies. Or you might be in the last camp, which is you are just overwhelmed and you don't know how to get business to happen because there's so much executive functioning that needs to happen, and business teachers out there teach these ways that just need so much executive functioning and it needs to be taught so much more simply. They say that 30% of entrepreneurs, they think are ADHD because we have amazing ideas. We think outside the box and we see how things can be fixed and changed and done differently, which is absolutely amazing. Those ADHDers, if you listen to their advice, they'll say, I did it my way. I had to do it differently for me. Not many of them, there are not many ADHDers out there teaching business. And those who do say, hey, you need to find your own way how to do it. That's how I did it. I started and I found what worked for me, which is totally true. But I believe that there is ADHD advice out there that can work for us. And we need to tweak the advice that's already there and make it work for ADHDers. And 30% of entrepreneurs are ADHDers. Imagine how many more of us are out there with these amazing ideas and we just can't work out how to get them started, or we can't work out how to focus on the one thing, or how to stay consistent and keep moving. That's why I'm so passionate about teaching this, because I know what it's like to feel like you have all this potential inside. And this is, I feel like, potentially one of the most depressing things about ADHD is feeling that you have all this potential inside and knowing it's just so big and so good and so golden, but not knowing how to get it out there, or trying and then it doesn't happen, or it takes a long time because of all this stopping and starting. And then there's that fear that what if it never happens? What if I never reach my potential? What if I never make this project happen? What if this potential stays locked inside? And that is so sad. I know how that feels and I don't want you to feel like that anymore. And I really want you, it's like I feel that for you, that potential that's locked inside you. I want to see that expressed. The world needs it. Whatever it is that you have in mind, that is your passion, your goal, your mission, the thing you have to teach or to offer and bring to the world, whether it be art or coaching or book writing or sports coaching, whatever it is, it's a beautiful thing. I believe everyone has something that is a gift that's here to be expressed. And I am really excited, actually. I'm excited. I'm going to get rid of this sad, frustrated, weird feeling and let's get more positive, because it's time to get that potential unlocked and to open it up and to start progressing consistently towards expressing that and manifesting that and having that as a real tangible thing in the world, because that feeling of having that expressed, but also the process of feeling like you have the momentum and it is happening, this is the most amazing thing in the world. And I want that for you too. So that was a tangent about business, but also, hang on a sec. Also, that foundation as well. You're aspiring to have your foundation of life together, because when those things dip and you have to take your focus back to maintaining these just ordinary bits of life, that can be really frustrating, because that's when we feel less capable and less empowered, and maybe sometimes even asking what's wrong with us. What's wrong with us that we have to spend so much of our time and energy each day thinking about our thoughts and emotions and our body, and how that's just holding us back a little bit. That's, yeah, I don't want us to get stuck at that point. So you might be aspiring to have that foundation where I just want to be healthy all the time. I just want to feel okay, and I want my thoughts to just not be too crazy, too out there, too overwhelming. Just basic foundation and environment to have my life together and not just have to spend so much energy and willpower trying to wash the dishes so I don't end up with a huge pile stacked up, or tidy my house because it's gotten messy again, um, or start from zero with exercise because I haven't been able to make it happen. Whatever it is, let's raise up a little bit. Let's create this strong foundation. It's like a double layered foundation. There's, like I was saying before, there's some of the struggles I just don't have anymore because I've kind of fixed them. So we're going to build a little thin layer of foundation, and then sometimes there's this other layer which things might still happen, but you have the strategies to help meet with them. Like if my emotions are dipping because it's a certain time in my cycle, then okay, I'm aware that those emotions and those dysphoric thoughts that come with PMDD, that's not me. That's just happening because of the time in my cycle. So I can just rest, just let those thoughts pass, just indulge in some relaxing television or whatever it is. And also knowing cycles are, yeah, so important to know, because also different levels of exercise and energy at different times during the month as well. Um, so yeah, just having that understanding and awareness and the little strategies to use. And in a few podcast episodes time, I will be teaching you, or maybe I teach it in momentum. Okay, I haven't taught it fully yet, but momentum, using momentum rather than motivation, is a really cool one for exercise, because you can set aside time just to do a little bit and to change it up, but change it up for the ADHD brain. So if you don't want to do the same thing every day and you get sick of it, switch it out for something else, but still have that time set aside for exercise and bringing that novelty in. That's one strategy in the exercise realm. But I'm getting kind of distracted. That's what we're aspiring to. Um, hold on. Also, that understanding of the ADHD brain and what brings us motivation, interest, novelty, challenge, urgency, and passion. Those are the things that help with the ADHD brain. So just having this awareness, creating that base foundation, knowing the strategies and actions, and then on above that foundation is where we're building our dream life. Because you can't build a dream life if you're feeling crap in your body or your mind or your emotions. Or you can't, I was going to say, or you can in the environment. You can, because I've been in a crappy environment before and manifested myself out. But we're going to go from aspiring ADHDer to energy empress. And I came up with this term energy empress before I actually knew that I had ADHD, and I knew all the damn symptoms. I didn't know that that's what ADHD meant. All I knew about was hyperactivity. The first thing I heard about ADHD was on like a current affair TV show, and there was a kid jumping up and down on a car, and they were saying this is what ADHD is. So that was my misconception. Um, Energy Empress, it's about having that foundation of life and about feeling like we are in control and empowered and embodied and creating this dream life that we want to, because we know how to master our energy in all those different aspects, and then we know how to manifest and create, and we have enough energy to express it outwards, if you want to look at it that way, and to bring in that universal energy that brings a little bit of magic in as well to help things along the way. Or you can look at it at a practical level if you're more practical. But I'm gonna guess if you're here for energy empresses, well, then you're going to look at things a little bit in a spiritual way and the ADHD way. Okay. I hope this podcast episode has inspired you and maybe motivated you a little bit to just feel ready and open to knowing that it's possible to live a life that's less rocky, less up and down, and that's making consistent progress towards a life that you envision for yourself, kind of like a blossoming flower. It's opening up. It's happening for you. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. Go ahead and subscribe. Maybe take a screenshot and share it on social media, so we can reach more people like us and raise each other up, because we really need a community for people like us. I think it's really lacking. So come on in. I'll see you in the next podcast episode. I'm so excited. All right. Catch you later.